My name is Brian. I am 46 years old, and for most of my adult life, I believed a man earned his place in a family by showing up. Not by demanding a title. Not by sharing blood. By staying. I owned a small HVAC company. Nothing glamorous. 6 vans, 9 employees, a cramped office that always smelled like dust, burnt coffee, and metal. Summers were brutal. Winters were worse. Furnaces failed at midnight. Air conditioners died during heat waves. I spent years crawling through attics hot enough to make a man dizzy and basements cold enough to numb his hands. But the work paid well enough. When I married Melissa, she had 2 sons. Owen was 13. Cade was 10. Their biological father drifted in and out of their lives, usually appearing when it was convenient, disappearing when responsibility arrived. I told myself I would never compete with him. I would simply be there. For 6 years, I paid the mortgage on the house Melissa had chosen before we met. I paid the utilities, groceries, insurance, phone bills, repairs, vacations, medical deductibles, school fees, hunting permits, fishing memberships, and the monthly payment on the black SUV Melissa insisted the boys needed for sports and weekend trips. I paid for country club memberships because Owen wanted to golf. I paid for a fishing lodge membership because Cade said it was the only place he felt close to his father. I paid for everything. And every year, they grew colder. At first, it was small. They stopped thanking me. Then they stopped asking before using my things. Then they began speaking about me as though I were a landlord who happened to eat at the same table. Melissa always had an excuse. They're adjusting. They miss their dad. They're teenagers. I accepted every explanation because accepting them was easier than admitting the truth. The truth was that I had purchased comfort, not belonging. The final humiliation happened at Melissa's mother's birthday dinner. Nearly 30 relatives were crowded into our backyard beneath strings of lights I had hung that morning. The tables were covered with food I had paid for. The music played through speakers I had bought. The grill smoked beside the patio I had rebuilt with my own hands. I was carrying a tray of steaks when one of Melissa's cousins joked that the boys were lucky to have me. Owen leaned back in his chair. Then he laughed. Does this old man seriously think he actually matters to us? For half a second, nobody moved. Then several relatives laughed. Not nervous laughter. Real laughter. Cade smirked into his drink. I looked at Melissa. She heard it. I know she did. But she turned toward the table and began rearranging napkins as though nothing had happened. That silence ended my marriage before either of us understood it. I did not drop the tray. I did not shout. I placed the steaks on the table, walked into the house, entered my office, and closed the door. My hands were perfectly steady. That frightened me more than anger would have. I called the bank and canceled the automatic payments on the SUV. I canceled both country club memberships. I canceled the hunting lease. I canceled the fishing membership. Then I called the travel agency and canceled the family vacation to Costa Rica that I had already paid for in full. The last call was to their father. I told him his sons had made their position clear. Since I did not matter to them, their expenses would now belong to the man who did. He laughed at first. Then he realized I was serious. I can't afford all that, he said. That sounds like a conversation you should have with your sons. I hung up. The consequences arrived within days. Melissa received a notice that the SUV payment had been stopped. Because the loan was tied to my company account, and I refused to continue paying, the vehicle had to be returned. She cried in the driveway while the dealership employee drove it away. The following Saturday, Owen and Cade tried entering the country club. Their membership cards were rejected at the front desk. They called me 6 times. I did not answer. That evening, the vacation cancellation email arrived. Cade stormed into the kitchen, waving his phone. You canceled Costa Rica? Yes. You can't do that. I already did. Owen called me petty. Cade called me vindictive. Melissa called me heartless. None of them called me family. That was the part they still did not understand. They wanted the benefits of my presence without the burden of respecting me. The bills kept arriving. The phone plan changed. The premium television package disappeared. Grocery spending tightened. Club dues were gone, but so were the privileges attached to them. Their father made his position clear. He would not pay for golf, fishing, vacations, gas, expensive clothes, or entertainment. He said he had his own life and his own expenses. For the first time, the boys saw the difference between a father they admired from a distance and the man who had quietly funded their daily existence. Still, they blamed me. Melissa cornered me in the bedroom one night. "You are destroying this family over one stupid comment." "No," I said. "That comment only revealed the family never included me. They're boys. Owen is 19. Kate is 16. They are old enough to humiliate me in front of 30 people. They are old enough to understand the consequences." She folded her arms. "So you're just going to abandon us?" I looked around the bedroom I had repainted, beneath the roof I had repaired, inside the house I had kept from foreclosure twice. I was never allowed to belong here. I was only expected to finance it. 2 weeks later, I rented a small house 10 minutes away. I packed my tools, clothes, records, photographs, and the old leather chair my biological daughter had given me. She was 22 and lived across town. She helped me carry the boxes. She did not ask me for money. She asked whether I was all right. That almost broke me. Melissa stood in the doorway while I loaded the final box. Neither Owen nor Kate came downstairs. I left without saying goodbye. Over the next few months, their lives changed quickly. Melissa found a full-time job at a medical office. The house went up for sale because she could not manage the mortgage alone. Owen took evening shifts at an auto parts store. Kate started washing dishes at a restaurant. They paid for their own gas, their own clothes, and their own entertainment. The world did not end. It simply stopped being free. Months later, Owen called me. His voice was quieter than I remembered. He said he and Kate had been talking. He admitted they had treated me unfairly. He said they had not understood how much I had done. I listened. Then I asked him one question. "Would you have called me if the money had never stopped?" He did not answer. That silence told me everything. I wished him well. I told him I hoped work taught him what comfort had hidden. Then I ended the call. I never moved back. I built a smaller life instead. A quieter one. I worked fewer weekends. I had dinner with my daughter every Thursday. I bought a fishing boat, not for Kate, not for family appearances, but for myself. For years, I thought sacrifice would eventually become love. I was wrong. Money can purchase vacations, vehicles, memberships, and beautiful rooms filled with people. It cannot purchase respect. And once I understood that, losing them no longer felt like failure. It felt like freedom. So tell me honestly, was I wrong to stop paying after they showed me what I truly meant to them? Or should I have continued buying a place in a family that had already decided I did not belong? The first night in the rented house, I slept on a mattress on the floor. There were no curtains, no pictures, no familiar footsteps above me. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen, and every few minutes the heating pipes knocked inside the walls. I should have felt lonely. Instead, I felt safe. For 6 years, silence in Melissa's house had meant someone was angry with me. It meant Owen had ignored a request, Kate had whispered something cruel, or Melissa had decided that defending me would create too much conflict. Silence had always been punishment. Here, silence belonged to me. The next morning, I woke before sunrise and drove to the shop. My employees noticed the change immediately. I was calmer. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. I no longer stared at bank notifications calculating how much of my labor would disappear into somebody else's comfort. For the first time in years, the money I earned remained mine. Melissa called constantly. At first, she demanded that I return. Then she threatened divorce. Then she began speaking softly, reminding me about birthdays, holidays, and memories as though nostalgia could rebuild what disrespect had destroyed. "The boys are struggling," she said one evening. "So did I. They didn't understand what you were doing for them. That was because you taught them they never had to." She went quiet. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line. Years earlier, I would have rushed to fill that silence. I would have apologized simply to make the tension disappear. I did not apologize. A week later, I learned the house had been listed for sale. Melissa could not afford the mortgage, taxes, insurance, or repairs on her salary. She asked whether I would continue paying until it sold. I refused. She called me cruel. That word followed me everywhere. Owen used it when his car insurance expired. Cade used it when he had to quit the private fishing club. Melissa used it when she traded her pride for a full-time job at a medical office. None of them used that word when I worked through fevers, missed weekends, or took emergency calls on Christmas Eve so their lives would remain comfortable. My suffering had been responsibility. Theirs was cruelty. My daughter, Emily, understood before anyone else did. She came over one Saturday carrying 2 folding chairs, a coffee maker, and a framed photograph of us taken when she was 12. "You need something on the walls," she said. We hung the photograph above the fireplace. In it, she was sitting on my shoulders, laughing, both hands gripping my head. Her mother and I had already divorced by then, but Emily had never treated my love like a debt. She called because she missed me. She visited without asking what I could buy. Being with her reminded me that family was not supposed to feel like an invoice. Months passed. The house sold for less than Melissa wanted. After the remaining loan and fees were paid, there was barely enough for a deposit on a modest rental. Owen moved into a cheap apartment with a coworker. Cade shared a room with his brother on weekends and stayed with Melissa during the week. Their father did not rescue them. He stopped answering after Owen asked him for help with tuition. He told Cade that hunting memberships were luxuries and suggested he find a job. The man they had defended from a distance vanished when distance was no longer enough. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. I bought furniture slowly. A table first. Then a couch. Then shelves for the books I had kept boxed for years because Melissa said they made the old house look cluttered. I cooked when I wanted. I slept when I was tired. Nobody laughed when I entered a room. One rainy evening, Owen appeared at my door. He looked older than he had 5 months earlier. His work shirt was stained with oil, and there were dark circles beneath his eyes. For a moment, I saw the boy I had once driven to baseball practice. Then I remembered the laughter beneath the backyard lights. "I came to apologize," he said. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. He told me working had changed him. He had calculated what rent, insurance, food, gas, and utilities cost. He admitted he had never wondered where the money came from before. "You made it look easy," he said. "No. You chose not to look." His eyes lowered. He said Cade was sorry too. He said Melissa cried often. He asked whether there was any chance I would come home. "That was never my home," I said. "It could be again." "No. It could become the place where everyone behaves because they are afraid I might stop paying. That is not respect." He flinched. "I really am sorry. I believe you regret what happened. That's the same thing." "No, Owen. Regret asks how life became harder. Remorse asks how another person was hurt." He stood in the rain for several seconds, absorbing the difference. Then he asked whether I hated him. I did not. Hatred still requires attachment. It keeps a person tied to the wound, feeding it, protecting it, carrying it into every new room. I had carried enough. "I hope you become better than the man you were that night," I told him. "But I will not sacrifice the man I am now to help you pretend it never happened." He nodded and walked away. I watched until his car disappeared. Then I went inside, where Emily was waiting with dinner. She did not ask whether I had changed my mind. She simply placed a plate in front of me and sat down. That quiet meal gave me more peace than 6 years of expensive vacations ever had. I finally understood that generosity without boundaries becomes permission. People who receive endlessly begin to mistake sacrifice for weakness. They stop seeing the person who gives and see only the hand holding the wallet. I had mistaken dependence for love. They had mistaken patience for surrender. Now the accounts were closed, the house was gone, and the family I tried to purchase had scattered beneath the weight of ordinary bills. Yet I was no longer bitter. I had paid dearly for the lesson, but I had learned it. A peaceful life is not built by convincing people to value you. It is built by walking away when they repeatedly prove they do not. So tell me, should forgiveness require me to return to the life that broke me, or was leaving the only honest thing I ever did? The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning. I was replacing a compressor at a grocery store when Melissa called. Her voice was flat, exhausted, stripped of the anger she had carried for months. "I filed," she said. I tightened the final bolt before answering. "All right." That was all. No pleading. No accusation. No speech about 6 wasted years. The silence seemed to disappoint her. Perhaps she had expected me to fight for the marriage. Perhaps she wanted proof that beneath my calm exterior I was still desperate to return. But the man who once feared losing that family no longer existed. He had vanished the night 30 people laughed, and his wife studied the napkins. The divorce was simple because there was little left to divide. The house had already been sold. Our accounts had been separated. Melissa kept the furniture she had moved into her rental. I kept my company, my tools, and the savings that remained after years of financing everyone else. She asked for support. Her attorney argued that she had grown dependent on my income during the marriage. The word dependent stayed with me. It was finally spoken aloud. For 6 years, dependence had worn the mask of love. It sat across from me at dinner. It slept beside me. It accepted vacations, repairs, insurance, and comfort, then looked away when I was humiliated. I agreed to the amount required by law. Not $1 more. Melissa called that cruelty too. By then, the word had lost its power. The final hearing lasted less than an hour. Melissa sat across the courtroom in a gray coat I had bought her for our 5th anniversary. She looked smaller than I remembered. Owen and Cade were not there. When the judge declared the marriage dissolved, I felt no triumph. Only release. Outside, Melissa followed me down the courthouse steps. "Was none of it real?" she asked. I stopped. Cold wind moved between the buildings, lifting strands of hair across her face. For years I had thought she was beautiful when she looked vulnerable. That morning I saw something else. I saw the woman who had protected peace with her sons by sacrificing my dignity. "My part was real," I said. She looked away. "I loved you. You loved what I made possible. That isn't fair." "No. Fair would have been defending me before I had to defend myself." Her eyes filled, but I had learned that tears did not always mean remorse. Sometimes they meant a person had finally reached the consequences. She asked whether I would ever forgive her. "I already have." Hope appeared in her face. Then I finished. "Forgiveness does not mean access." I walked away. Spring came slowly that year. Business improved, and I hired another technician so I could stop working every emergency call myself. For the first time since marrying Melissa, I took Sundays off. Emily and I began spending them together. Sometimes we went fishing. Sometimes we cooked. Sometimes we sat on my porch and talked about nothing important. Those ordinary hours taught me more about family than every expensive trip I had arranged for the boys. Emily never measured my value by what I provided. She noticed when I was tired. She remembered how I took my coffee. She asked about my fears without treating them as weakness. One afternoon, she brought me a folder filled with old photographs. There were pictures of school plays, camping trips, birthdays, and quiet dinners from years before Melissa entered my life. "You were always there," she said. The words struck deeper than she knew. I had spent 6 years trying to prove my presence to people determined not to recognize it. Meanwhile, The person who truly loved me had never asked for proof. That summer, Cade contacted me. His message was brief. He said he had quit the restaurant and started working for a landscaping company. He apologized for laughing at Owen's comment. He admitted he had known it was cruel but joined in because the relatives were laughing and he wanted his brother's approval. I read the message several times. Then I invited him to meet me at a diner. He arrived early. He had lost weight. His hands were rough from work, and the arrogance I remembered had been replaced by caution. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "I already did." He nodded, staring at the table. "But I'm not coming back," I added. "I know." For the first time, one of them apologized without asking me to restore anything. No money. No membership. No rescue. Just truth. That mattered. Cade told me working had changed the way he saw those years. He spoke about waking before sunrise, lifting stone in the heat, and watching most of his paycheck disappear into rent and groceries. "I didn't know what things cost," he said. "You knew they cost something." He accepted that without arguing. Before leaving, he asked whether we could speak again someday. I told him perhaps. Not because I wanted another son. Not because his apology erased the past. Because accountability deserved recognition, even when reconciliation remained impossible. Owen was different. He sent long messages explaining why he had behaved as he did. He blamed his father's absence, his mother's guilt, the pressure of relatives, and his own immaturity. Every explanation contained a reason. None contained responsibility. I stopped answering. Months later, he came to my company office without warning. My receptionist tried to stop him, but I allowed him inside. He looked angry. "You'll meet Cade, but not me?" Cade apologized. "So did I." "You explained yourself. What difference does that make? An apology says I hurt you. An explanation says you should understand why I was allowed to." His jaw tightened. He accused me of dividing the brothers. He said I was rewarding Cade for betraying him. He said Melissa believed I had always wanted an excuse to abandon them. I listened until he finished. Then I opened the office door. "You still believe the worst thing that happened was losing my money?" I said. "The worst thing was becoming the kind of man who could humiliate someone who loved him and feel powerful doing it." He stared at me. For once, he had no answer. I watched him leave through the same doorway customers and employees used every day. There was no dramatic collapse. No begging. No final embrace. Some people change when consequences arrive. Others only become angry at the person who delivered them. I returned to my desk and finished the payroll. That evening, I sat alone on my porch as the sun disappeared behind the trees. My home was quiet, my accounts were stable, and nobody inside was waiting to insult me before asking what I could provide. I had lost a wife, 2 stepsons, and the illusion of a family. But I had recovered something more valuable. My self-respect. So tell me, when an apology is offered only because consequences hurt, is refusing reconciliation an act of bitterness, or the final boundary of a man who has already forgiven too much? A year after the divorce, I stopped measuring my life by what had been taken from me. The habit had lingered longer than I wanted to admit. I would wake in the night and remember the house, the crowded kitchen, the boys arguing over the television, Melissa calling my name from another room because something needed fixing. For a few seconds, I would feel the old urgency rise inside me. Then I would remember that none of it was mine anymore. And I would breathe. My rented house had slowly become a home. Not an impressive one. There was no marble counter, no oversized garage, no membership card lying beside the keys. The floors creaked. The backyard fence leaned slightly toward the alley. One window rattled whenever the wind came from the north. But every object inside had been chosen by me. Every bill carried only my name. Every silence was peaceful. I eventually bought the house from the owner. The day I signed the papers, Emily brought over a bottle of champagne and a small wooden plaque. It read, "Peace lives here." I hung it beside the front door. A week later, Melissa saw it. She had arrived without calling, carrying a cardboard box filled with things she claimed I had left behind. Most of them were meaningless: an old jacket, several photographs, a coffee mug Cade had given me years earlier. She stood beneath the plaque and stared at it. "So this is your life now?" she asked. "Yes." She looked through the open doorway at the clean living room, the bookshelves, the photograph of Emily above the fireplace. "You replaced us quickly." I almost laughed, but there was nothing funny in her accusation. "I did not replace anyone," I said. "I stopped living where I was unwanted." Her face tightened. She told me Owen had been fired from the auto parts store after arguing with his manager. Cade was still landscaping, though he had started taking evening classes at a community college. Their father had moved to another state without telling either of them. Melissa was working overtime. Her rent had increased. Her car needed repairs. Each fact landed between us like a request she was too proud to speak. I waited. Finally, she asked whether I could help with the repair bill. There it was. Not love. Not regret. Need. "No," I said. Her eyes hardened immediately. "You can afford it. That does not make it my responsibility. You were their father for 6 years." "No. I performed a father's responsibilities. They made it clear I never held the place." She stepped closer. "They were children. And you were my wife." That stopped her. I handed the box back. Nothing inside belonged to the man I had become. She left it on the porch and drove away. That evening, I opened the box alone. At the bottom was a photograph from our first family vacation. Owen and Cade stood beside me on a beach, both smiling. Melissa had written the date on the back. For years, I would have treated that photograph as evidence that we had once been happy. Now I saw the truth. A photograph captures faces. It does not capture loyalty. I threw it away. 3 months later, Cade asked to meet again. We sat in the same diner, at the same corner table. He wore work boots and carried a notebook filled with estimates for a small landscaping business he wanted to start. He did not ask me for money. He asked for advice. That difference mattered. I explained insurance, taxes, payroll, equipment costs, and the danger of confusing revenue with profit. He listened without interrupting. When the waitress brought the bill, he reached for it before I could. "I've got it," he said. The meal cost less than $30, but his gesture carried more weight than every apology before it. Outside, he thanked me. Then he called me Brian. Once, that would have hurt. That day, it felt honest. We were not father and son. We were two men standing beside old damage, trying to speak without pretending it had vanished. I could accept that. Owen could not. He learned about my meetings with Cade and sent me a message accusing me of choosing favorites. He said Cade had laughed too. He said I was punishing him because he had been brave enough to speak what everyone else felt. That sentence revealed how little he had changed. In his mind, cruelty was courage. Consequences were persecution. I replied once. I told him Cade had taken responsibility without demanding restoration. Owen still treated apology like a key that should reopen every locked door. He answered with insults. I blocked his number. Weeks later, he appeared at the shop again. This time, I did not let him into my office. We stood in the parking lot beneath a gray winter sky while my employees watched through the windows. "You turned Cade against me," he said. "No. You're acting like some kind of saint." "No. You destroyed our family." That accusation finally stirred something inside me. Not anger. Clarity. "I did not destroy your family, Owen. I stopped financing the illusion that it was one." His face changed. For the first time, I saw uncertainty break through his rage. I continued. "You had a mother who excused you, a father who abandoned you, and a stepfather who paid for everything. You decided the stepfather was the easiest man to humiliate because you believed he would never leave." He looked toward the ground. "You were wrong." He muttered that I had made my point. No, I said. Life made it. I simply stopped shielding you from it. He left without another word. I watched him go, and I felt no victory. A man does not celebrate when someone he once loved remains trapped inside his own pride. He simply stops entering the cage with him. That spring, Emily announced she was pregnant. When she handed me the ultrasound photograph, my hands began to shake. I imagined a child entering my house without knowing anything about the years before it. A child who would know me only as the man who held her, read to her, and showed up. Not as a wallet. Not as an outsider. As family. Months later, I held my granddaughter against my chest while Emily slept in the hospital bed. The baby's fingers closed around mine with astonishing strength. She did not know what I owned. She did not know what I had paid. She trusted me because I was there. I finally understood what 6 years of sacrifice had failed to teach me. Real love does not require a man to purchase permission to belong. It does not laugh when he is wounded. It does not remain silent while others erase him. I had spent years pouring money into people who treated gratitude as weakness, while the people who valued me had asked only for my presence. I could not recover the lost years. I could not reclaim the money. I could not force Owen to change or Melissa to understand. But I could decide where the rest of my life would go. Into quiet mornings. Into honest work. Into dinners with Emily. Into advice freely given to Cade, without pretending history had been erased. Into the small hand of a granddaughter who would never need to wonder whether I mattered. That was the fortune I should have protected from the beginning. So tell me, when a man finally stops paying for people who refuse to value him, has he abandoned his family? Or has he simply stopped abandoning himself?